Hello everyone and welcome to my Wild Rift tier list for patch 6.1a. A few big changes happened this patch to the jungle specifically, but there are some other changes to other roles, and in these type of videos where I go through the A, B and C patches, I just talk about the changes. But if you want more details on a champion or why you think I've put it in a certain tier, or maybe you have different opinions, maybe you think a champion deserves to be higher in a tier or lower in a tier, let me know down in the comments. Now let's head through the tier list. I'll of course be talking about the buffs and nerfs that happened in this patch as well, and where I feel like champions do stand. Now first up in the Baron lane, we are going to be talking about one of the nerfs that happened to Wukong. Now in my opinion, Wukong is still a very strong Baron laner. I don't think they really hit the right nail here with Wukong in the Baron lane. I think the main ability that really needs to be nerfed is his first ability. His first ability, when combined with Grasping Undying, is a very strong combo. And that's why, in my opinion, he stays in the S+ tier. I think he's still a very strong Baron laner to play. He's still a very safe Baron laner to play. And he can be very powerful. He is still paired with some of the best Baron laners in the game right now, Gnar, Rumble, and Ornn. All of these Baron laners perform very well. But one champion I do need to try out a little bit more, and I've seen some crazy stats over in China. This champion has an 80% ban rate right now in legendary queue in China, and that is Nasus. Now, I do have him at S tier, which I had him at the start of patch 6.1 anyway. But a lot of people may be considering him to move up into the S+ tier, and you know why he's so broken right now. It's because he has one of the safest laning phases of any champion in the game. He has infinite scaling when you last hit with your first ability. And honestly, he's just pretty unkillable right now. He has some great rune choices, whether you want to go for Grasp or Fleet Footwork. Both of them work very well. But in general, very safe laning phase, infinite scaling. A lot of people don't really understand, and especially junglers don't understand how to put these champions behind. It's all about playing aggressive, going for tower dives, and putting them behind before they can just AFK farm and get as many stacks as possible. But that doesn't normally happen in Wild Rift. Invades don't really happen. Tower dives don't really happen too often, and that's why champions like Nasus and even Kayle, for example, can work very well in the mid lane and also in the Baron lane, because they can stay super safe. They have insane, I mean, Nasus has insane inbuilt Omnivamp as well, and inbuilt healing with his first ability as well. So in general, I have a feeling that sooner or later it might move up into S+ tier, but I'm still holding off a little bit. I'm still holding off. I still do think the champion can struggle in team fights, because he doesn't really have any dashes or anything like that. He just runs towards your AD carry, uses Wither, and just prays that he does enough damage and prays he can run towards them. But if you have appealing support by your side, like a Nautilus or even a Brom, then it makes Nasus' life extremely difficult. But in terms of the rest of the S tier, nothing's changed in the S tier. A tier as well, I've moved Renekton down from S tier to A tier. I think the problem with Renekton at the moment is he can't really get the early game advantage that he really needs in the game. He didn't receive any buffs or nerfs, but this is just my general opinion of Renekton right now. His early game is just not strong enough in my opinion, and he just really struggles against, you know, some of the matchups in the S tier, who also scale much better into the mid late game than Renekton as well. And in excuse me, in the B tier we have Garen and Sion. Both these champions did get buffed in patch 6.1a, but honestly it meant nothing at all. Both these champions still performing very poorly in the moment, and both these champions just struggling a lot in the current meta as well. Again, kind of the same thing to these champions that don't really have any mobility or really any scaling, like Garen and Sion, just really struggle to get onto the back line and struggle to do enough damage to some of these mages and carries that are so strong at the moment. So that's everything in the Baron lane. Again, like I said, nothing really too much has changed. One champion change with Renekton moving down, but maybe I'll move Nasus to S+ tier. Maybe. We'll have to see. Jungle. Big changes in the jungle this patch, with the gold and also how jungle clear in general works. After 2.5 minutes now, auto attacks towards jungle camps are now going to be decreased, or you're not going to get the bonus damage anymore. That's going to keep going down and down until I think about 7.5 minutes or something like that, or 5 minutes. I can't remember what the time was exactly, but that damage in general is going down. So that means the auto attack champions in general, like Neela, for example, who is very powerful, are going to be much weaker. And champions in general that do a lot of auto attacks in the jungle and their abilities don't do as much damage are going to be hit very hard in the jungle. But also on top of that, after 7.5 minutes, you're now not going to be receiving the bonus 20% gold. Instead, at 7.5 minutes, you can now gain 100% of the gold from minions in the laning phase. So you might see a lot of junglers now going towards your lane at 7.5 minutes and taking some of the minions. It's completely fine. It was grief before because they actually get less gold and you get less gold overall as well. But now it's actually not that bad because they get 100% of the gold. But in general, what that's meant is that these AFK farming junglers like Neela, for example, or even Kale, Shyvana, a lot of these late game scaling champions that just wanted to farm and never gank at all these junglers got nerfed. And you can see that Neela is nowhere in sight. It's because I moved her all the way down into A tier. I did have her in S tier before, but I moved her down into A tier. Of course, because of the nerfs, it means that Neela is now going to be a lot slower when clearing the jungle, not going to get as much gold as well, so it's going to be very difficult for her to get to 3 or 4 items to be that unkillable late game demon that she is. However, she is still a viable jungler to play. There is still possibilities that you can make this jungler work, but in general, it's just going to be much harder to deal with. And with that, it does mean that AP junglers in general got a huge buff in this patch. Because AP junglers in general don't auto-attack jungle camps. They use their abilities. Their abilities are the main source of damage. So champions like, surprise, surprise, Amumu got even better and just didn't get nerfed for some reason. No idea how. But champions like Lilia as well, which honestly, I think Lilia right now is one of the strongest junglers to play in this meta. An AP jungler that can clear the jungle very, very quickly, but also has great teamfight potential and great ganking potential as well. Her movement speed makes it very, very difficult for her, for champions to lock her down. And overall, she's just a great jungler to play. I think she's sitting at the top right now with Amumu when Amumu doesn't get picked or when it gets banned. I think Lilia is definitely the best in line. There are a lot of S tier champions that can still work very well and can still perform very well. With that, I'd move 2 champions up into the S tier with Jarvan and Morgana. Morgana in general is just going to have insane jungle clear speed, kind of like Lilia right now, because jungle clear speed gets pretty much, I guess, buffed in a way because all the AD champions got nerfed in jungle, but all these AP junglers, I guess, got buffed because they still get the bonus damage, whereas AD junglers don't right now. So Morgana is just going to clear through jungle very quickly. The only downside to Morgana is that you're kind of useless really when it comes to not really useless, I would say, but you're not as impactful when it comes to ganking or maybe even team fights. You're more sitting at the back line and trying to do a lot of damage, where a lot of these other junglers are more at the forefront and they're the ones engaging first and they're the ones making the plays, whereas Morgana is a little bit more laid back, I guess you can say. Jarvan as well, in general, I do think ganking junglers also got a big buff this patch. Early ganking junglers that want to gank early, maybe level 3 ganks in general, because you want to gank more often to try and get more gold now, because you get less gold maybe from jungle camps after 7.5 minutes. You can try and gank more often and get more gold that way. And also invading in general as well has also been buffed as well in a way, because if you invade a jungle camp, you have to remember that the enemy jungler is going to be losing that gold and you're also going to be gaining that gold. So if you're able to invade, you're actually going to be getting a lot more bonuses now in terms of gold, especially after that like 7.5 minutes, for example, because you're denying that gold, but also you're gaining the gold yourself as well. So you can still clear through your jungle and also try and invade, and you get a net positive, which was even more than before because of the changes that happened to junglers in general. So both these junglers have moved up. As for the rest of the S tier, nothing else has changed, I believe. I'm looking over at my notes just to make sure. But yeah, nothing else has changed with the S tier. Again, I've just moved Lilia up to the S plus tier. I believe I also moved Wukong down. I think I had Wukong. Yeah, I had Wukong in the S plus tier before. Wukong also moved down just because Wukong, the nerf actually hit him, in my opinion, more in the jungle with the 3rd ability. But also in general, Wukong auto attacks a lot more in the jungle, so his jungle clear speed is going to be a little bit weaker, but a jungler that you can still play and still perform very well with. AT, as I mentioned as well, not really too much has changed. I already mentioned about Neela moving down because the changes happened to jungle. Fiddlesticks, I've moved up from B tier to A tier. I do still think people get baited a lot by Malignance on Fiddlesticks. You can maybe build this as a 4th or 5th item, but in general, Fiddlesticks wants a lot of burst damage, a lot of damage in general. And again, as I mentioned, AP junglers this patch got a huge buff with just how much quicker they can clear through the jungle now. Nunu is also a pretty decent pick if you want a more tankier jungler to play. Also a great choice. Again, a champion that doesn't really auto attack that much and has true damage in his kit, so it's quite nice. I guess we talk about Shyvana as well. The difference is with Shyvana, even though her clear speed got slower because she auto attacks a lot, but also she gains less gold. The difference with Shyvana compared to these other junglers that just wants to, you know, keep on farming is that Shyvana gains stacks. Every single time that she clears the jungle camp, she gains stacks, which allows her to upgrade her abilities. So that's why a champion like Shyvana hasn't moved down into the B tier. She stays in A tier as a viable jungle that if you do want to sit back and if you do want to farm through the jungle and try and scale and get 2 or 3 items, then you can still do that. But it just might be a little bit delayed this time. The B tier, pretty much the same champions are in here right now. I mean, I think Gwen jungle is now completely dead. Same with Darius as well. These kind of Baron lane junglers that were viable before are pretty much dead now, to be fair. I think the only one that is actually decent is Aatrox because he does a lot of damage with his sweet spot. But other than that, I mean, Riven is more of a jungler really at the moment than a Baron laner anyway, so that's not really a viable conversation. But in general, these Baron lane junglers, Jax as well, another great example. All these auto attack Baron lane junglers are pretty much dead now because of the changes that happened in the patch. And Kayle was moved down from A tier to B tier as well because of the changes that happened and because Kayle basically only auto attacks in the jungle. And of course, it's going to take you a little bit longer to get to 3 or 4 items. That was probably the biggest change with this patch is, of course, the jungle. Mid lane, Ryze stays in the S+ tier. Very surprised that Ryze didn't get touched this patch. I do believe that Ryze can also work very well in the Baron lane because you have that range advantage. I do need to try out Ryze a bit more in the Baron lane, so maybe I'll give that a try and see what it's like. But now has been joined by Syndra in the S+ tier. Now, a few patches ago, I moved Syndra down from S+ tier to S tier because she got nerfed and other mid laners didn't get nerfed. But now all the other mid laners are getting nerfed, like Victor, for example, who moves down from S+ tier to S tier since the scaling of Victor is not as strong as what it was before. Now Syndra moves back up into the S+ tier. I think that she's probably one of the safest and easiest mid lane mages to play. She has great pick potential, great burst damage, and I think she's a really, really strong mid lane mage to play right now. If Ryze is banned or is picked, then you can just pick Syndra instead. A great option. S tier, as I just mentioned, Victor moves down into S tier with the nerfs that happened in the most recent patch. I do still think the champion is very strong. You have great survivability and the scaling is still great with your upgraded abilities, but your damage is not really there anymore. You're not going to one-shot as much as what you did before because they nerfed like the first ability and the third ability damage in general. And that's pretty much it in the mid lane. Nothing else has changed in the mid lane. Not really much has changed in terms of the mid lane meta. There wasn't any other champion changes or anything like that. Not really much to talk about in the mid lane. I mean, everything kind of stays as it is. Oh, I did actually move Yasuo and Yone down to B tier. I think Yasuo right now might low-key be one of the worst performing mid laners in the game. I think the reason for that is just because how difficult the champion is, but also just because it feels like the champion just does no damage at the moment. You can go for a crazy outplay, you can knock up multiple champions, but you're just not doing as much damage. And of course, the tank build was very strong before, but they changed the way Grasp the Undying worked. They nerfed Wiscend as well, so that item is now not as powerful. So Yasuo definitely struggles right now in the mid lane, and the same with Yone as well. Kind of the same thing, that these mages right now are so powerful. I mean, you look at all these mages that can burst out the likes of Yasuo and Yone so easily, and how strong they all are right now. I mean, every single champion in the S tier and the S+ tier are all mages. There are no assassins, no nothing in the mid lane right now. Mid lane is just all a mage meta, so that's why these champions have both moved down. Into the dual lane, Sevir's moved down from S+ tier to S tier. I don't think the nerf actually did too much, to be fair, but I think the damage with your second ability is definitely being reduced. However, if you do have someone like a Lulu or Yuumi by your side, the enhanced damage can definitely still be very, very scary. I came up against a Severe with a Lulu, sorry, not Lulu, a Yuumi. And when Yuumi sits on Severe and then uses a W in a team fight, it still does a crazy amount of damage. So even though they did nerf the second ability, it still does a crazy amount of damage, and you can still do great carry. You can still carry in most games. However, I don't think Severe is near enough as strong as Corki and Varus. Now, I've been playing a lot of Legendary Queue over the last 2 days, and every single game right now is either Corki or Ryze first picked. And most of the time, it's actually Corki and Varus nerfed in Corki and Ryze, sorry, nerfed in 100% of the games. And if Corki's not picked, then you see either Varus, Xayah, or Ezreal. These are the only 3 other AD carries that you ever see. You rarely ever see any other AD carries. I mean, Varus is still a very strong pick in general. Ezreal is still one of the safest picks, even though me personally, I'm not that good on Ezreal, I must admit, but like other AD carries perform incredibly well on Ezreal, and the champion is very safe and a great carry. And of course, Xayah is a pick that I always go for as like the safest pick for me. And recently I did get rank 1 Xayah again, so I'm pretty happy about that. Miss Fortune still works in the S tier. I still think that she's a great champion that has a lot of poke and a lot of burst damage in general, mainly for the lower elos. It kind of struggles a little bit in high elos because people understand how to position and how to not get poked as much against Miss Fortune, but in general she is pretty strong. A tier, B tier, and C tier, nothing has changed. Jinx for some reason got a nerf. I have no idea why Jinx got a nerf, but she just stays the same. She was actually, surprisingly enough, I've actually been against more Jinxes now after she received a nerf more than I have over the past like year or two, and I have no idea why. It's like the champion just got nerfed and now we're just trying out Jinx again for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, I don't think the champion was ever good. I don't think it ever needed a nerf, but yeah, Jinx stays in the A tier. And then, as I mentioned, as for the rest of the tiers, they all stay the same. Moving into support tier list, I have moved Seraphine up into the S+ tier. I still do think Blitzcrank is in the S+ tier, but I've moved Seraphine up as well. Seraphine is just so disgusting right now. Oh my god. The amount of times I've had a Seraphine on my team or a Seraphine on the enemy team, she has great laning phase, like incredible laning phase. She has poke, she has sustain with the healing on their second ability, she has shielding, she has a game-changing ultimate as well in the laning phase, not to mention that's also very useful in team fights as well. But Seraphine is one of the most annoying supports to play against right now. You go Ingenious Hunter, you go Harmonic Echo, you go Redemption, and you're honestly giving your whole team like a 500 plus HP shield every 5 seconds. It's absolutely disgusting what Seraphine can do. But yeah, she's very, very powerful right now. Her AoE healing, her AoE shielding is very powerful. On top of that, you can build like Locket as well, and also her ultimate is pretty game changing. Blitzcrank did receive a nerf, but I still think he's one of the best supports out there. Again, if you're playing against any of these enchanter supports like Seraphine, Janna, Lulu, Sona, Soraka, any of these champions, you just pick Blitzcrank and you just try and land a hook and you win the game from that, because they'll play a little bit more scared because they're much squishier to play, and also it just becomes a lot more difficult when you're playing against a Blitzcrank. So Blitzcrank stays in S+ tier, Seraphine moves up into S+ tier. The other support that's very similar to Seraphine is Sona, but I do think Seraphine is much better than Sona in my opinion. I think Sona just takes a little bit more time to scale, and also she just needs a lot more mana in her kit. Her cooldowns are lower, but she doesn't have the same AoE effect that Seraphine does. And also Seraphine's ultimate is a lot more impactful than Sona's ultimate, which is again why Seraphine is above Sona. S tier, I've moved Leona up. Pretty big buff in this patch, to be fair. The second ability, the armor and MR going up, also the base damage going up by 20 at every single rank. I think Leona is a great option if you need an engaged tank support to play. Really, really nice. Great lockdown. Really big tank as well to play now. So definitely a great pick to pick. Definitely a great pick to go for with Leona. And that is pretty much it with support. I don't think there's anything else. Yeah. Oh, I moved Senna down from B tier to C tier because Senna is probably the worst champion in the game right now. And the reason for that is because she doesn't have a rune. She doesn't have an item build. Her item build right now is just legit utility items. Anti-shield, anti-heal, Iceborne Gauntlet. It's the only items you can build on this champion. Doesn't do enough damage. Doesn't carry. I would only allow someone to play Senna in my lane if they actually know how to play it. And they actually know like the limits and what to do with Senna. But in general, the champion is very, very bad right now. It's very hard to pull off. And yeah, that is pretty much it for the tier list for patch 6.18. Again, as I mentioned, if you do have any thoughts on the tier list, if you feel like a champion deserves to be higher or low in the tier list, please do let me know in the comments as always. Hopefully you enjoyed this quick rundown of the tier list. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.